Oklahoma, and in the shop working on the Tickle Pickle. Last video on the Tickle Pickle, when I left you, we had the rear suspension mocked in, tacked up, and I have since finished welded it. In this week's video, we're going to focus on tapping the airbox, checking it for leaks. We're going to work on the rest of the bed support, the rear bumper mount, and getting the airbags mounted. So let me bring you in. I'll show you the welding, and we'll see how where we're going to go from there. All right, you can see it's not bad. I never have any real heat problems. My welder's a good welder, so I always get good penetration. What I have trouble with is getting good consistency on my form. I don't know why I don't. I would think, you know, I've been welding for quite some time, and you'd think I'd have it down, but I don't. I know that as my eyesight's gotten worse, as you can tell by my reading glasses, that's definitely been a difficulty. And of course the light, but those are just excuses. However, things are moving along. Like I said, we're going to, I got the mounts are down there as well. So I'm going to drill a hole. We're going to tap it and put a fill in there, or fill, what are we putting in there? I don't know, some connector so that we can fill it. And then we'll see what our leak down is, how much pressure we lose, etc., that kind of thing. Check it for leaks, spray it with the soapy water, all that good stuff. So let's get to that. All right, I got the hose hooked up, and I can hear, oh, if it's this connection, oh, we got a leak right there. Oh, we got a bunch of leaks in here. All right. Oh, a bunch of them. Well, this is what I'm going to have to do. Just go along and find all the holes. Well, there's a lot more than you think. It doesn't look like it, but there's a bunch. So I'll bring you a little bit closer, but I will go through, spray with soapy water. We'll mark it, and we'll fix them till we don't have any leaks. But you can see we got a few to repair. Well, at any rate, that's what I'm going to be doing for the next little bit. I'll bring you back when we're done. All right, everybody, update time. We have gotten all the pinholes welded up on my subframe. I pulled it off of the rig just because it made it a little easier to get to everything. Rather than trying to weld upside down and stuff, I could just roll this around easy enough. And now I'm getting ready to do all of the fish plating and some final work. I'm gonna bring you in a little closer, show you what I got. So went over to my buddy Mike's over the top off-road. We cut these out on his plasma table, but I got a little bit larger one for here where it was going to conflict with this bracket. I got a little bit smaller one. You can see we'll have another one down here in the middle. I am going to add a little bit of plate. I haven't cut it yet. I got to freehand that from here down. Really probably doesn't need it, but better safe than sorry. Another fish plate, and then we'll flip it over and do the opposite hand. I'm not worried about anything down on the end caps. And then I got some gussets cut, just some simple ones. And these, I'll cut the backs off them, but they'll go in here. Just something nice and simple like that. So as you can see where the weld is in the corner, I got to grind that off. And that'll just help me. That'll just let me make sure everything stays solid, that it's not twisting around too much. Not that I'm really too concerned about it, but it's just the right way to do it. So that's how we're doing it. So let me get to welding, and then we'll get back to you when this thing's good and hot. so the shop itself's only like 93 degrees, so about the same as it is outside. Of course, as humid as all get out, which I know lots of you deal with the same thing. But with the welding, that was warm. But it is done for what I've got cut. I need to make those inner plates for the lower link mounts, and then I think we can start welding it to the frame permanently. Gonna have to let it cool though, but I'll show you what I got. All right, so didn't come out too bad. Actually got some good welds in there this time. But we got all our gussets, fish plates. The small ones are on the outside. And I did go ahead. It probably would have looked neater, cooler, had I not welded the inside circles. It would have been crisp and just added a detail. But I really want these more for strength. And this is going to be up underneath the body. You really won't ever see it unless you're underneath there for some reason. So strength in this case is more important than aesthetics. But still looks pretty good. I'm pleased with it. We've got all the holes drilled. Everything has been, all the pinholes are filled up, so the air tank part's good. We'll cut those plates tomorrow, and then we'll start welding it in permanently and get to moving on with the body. Body's coming up soon. Looking forward to it. All right, we're talking update time. We have permanently mounted the frame pieces together. So right now, got just the verticals, some of the interior welds, the plug welds, and now what I got to do is slit this, bend it up, weld behind it, and then I got to finish slitting it, bend it down, and then once it's all flush with this upper rail, got to weld it all in, weld the back of it, and then bend the remainder. Is my goal. I want to bend the remainder of this piece over and basically wrap that whole subframe with the existing frame, and just can make a really extremely strong joint. Not that I'm really all that worried, even at its present condition, that it would come apart, but the stiffer you can make it, the better the chassis is going to be. It'll handle better, all that good stuff, feel better, all those good things. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to get rolling on that, and yeah, it's getting there. So I've got the first half done, first half of the steps I should say, on one side. So I split it, as you saw in the time lapse, up to 2 inches from my end point, and got in there and welded everything up on the flats. And then I finished the split, and now I'm going to bend this down. This piece right here, it's hot, I can't touch it. Gonna bend it down so it forms basically a 45-degree angle, a little bit less, and then this strap will then be laid flush on that. I'll be able to weld it, and then we'll cut this piece and bend it over and weld it, and basically it's gonna wrap the whole top of that joint, make it nice and strong. Not that it wouldn't be strong anyways, but I like to overdo everything, so that's what we're gonna do. driver's side is done. Take a quick look, show you what we got. So you can see, got it bent over, welded. It's welded down underneath there, welded and bent over there, welded down both sides of the back, welded underneath. We're plug welded. So don't think I have any concerns that that's going to go anywhere ever. So gonna do the other side, and then we'll move to getting the rear end connected and work on getting the back subframe mounted, or the back frame mounted to the subframe, however you want to look at it. So that's where we're at. So I'm gonna get on that. It's getting hot, so I'd like to get as much of this done today as I can before I get too tired of the heat. All right, let's get to it. Okay, so let's talk about where we're at. We have the back end basically welded on. I've got one more up in here on the other side that needs to be done, but I ran out of welding wire, and of course when it ran out it was too late to go get any, so I'll have to do that in the morning. But that being said, we're looking pretty good. We've got everything in place. We're getting down to details. Next I'm going to work on gas tank mount. I've got the original. It's going to end up mounting off of here. We have the bag mounts that need to be welded to the axle, and then I need to bend and drill the mounting holes and the access hole for the air on this one, or on both of them actually, but these will get mounted down, sorry, but at any rate they'll go down like that, a little bit below the top of, there we go, perfect, below the frame rail, be bent at an angle to give them some strength. I may bend the back of the flange at a 90 as well, just to give it some additional strength beyond that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to getting those done. Once that's done, once the gas tank's done, I went and checked. I've got all the components to build my drive shaft. So we may get the drive shaft and the exhaust built and get myself to the point that we're ready to stab a body on this. One thing I'm going to wait, so that temporary cross member is going to go away. We've got some down bars that need to go in here, and then two more cross braces, one tubular, and then we've got the one that is the 2x4 rectangle. That is for the where the bumper's going to mount, and I think I'll get the body mounted, make sure I have that where I need it, so that that height is correct and I'm not an inch low or something, and that I can get it nice and tight underneath the roll pan, because these do have a bit of a roll pan there. So at any rate, I want to fiddle with that, make sure I get it right where I want it. But that's where we're at for now. We're actually starting to look pretty good. You know, once I get the exhaust in, the drive shaft in, all of my gas lines are already run, all my fuel lines. I just need to connect the rubber end on the fuel tank. I do have to switch out that fuel pump for a higher pressure one. But with that, fuel, exhaust, I mean, we put power to the motor, we could start it up. Drive shaft, that would make it not a driver, but able to start being motive. And then we've got brakes to plumb, but a lot of the brake lines are already in place as well, or already pre-bent, one of the two, however you want to look at it. I do have to work out how we're going to do the booster system inside. I haven't gotten there yet. I'm probably going to have to do, to switch gears on you real quick while I'm thinking about it. We've got some bracing that I'm going to do in here, in part because this rear mount on the fuel tank needs something to come down and grab it. So we got to do that so that I can get the strap on it and hold the back of the fuel tank. But that's where we're at. But we're getting there. I'm liking it. All right, guys. So when I last left you, gave kind of an overview of where everything's at, and I've determined I've got a problem fuel tank wise. So I thought I'd bring you back in and talk about that for a minute. With where I've gotten it sitting right now, the back of the body is supposed to hit right here and come up at approximately the same angle, provided all my measurements are correct. Problem that I've got is where I've got the tank, this intrudes into the seating area, and so the driver's seat, while technically will sit somewhere right in here, I base my measurements upon the seat that's in there now, not accounting for the chop. So the chop's going to drop my seat height down to almost this level, you know, somewhere in here, which means my seat back's going to come up here at an angle. And that means I either need to cut the tank up to try and mitigate where everything's going to be hitting so that my seat can come back, or I end up with my seat so far forward that I have zero leg room, and that's going to make it very uncomfortable to ride in. My other option is to put it back here behind the axle. And I think I've got a tank that will work for that. And I think I've got room in the rig. The problem is I'm intending to put my radiator back here. And I was wanting to leave this area open so I had airflow into the radiator. If I put a big fuel tank here, I'm a little concerned that I won't have the airflow I need. Now I might be able to mitigate that with some air ducting, either from the sides. I won't be able to come in from the top because I intend on having a top on the rig, so that would negate that. But I might be able to do some side air ducts, or maybe some air ducts underneath the axle to scoop it up and come underneath the tank. So what I'm going to have to do at this point is move on to other things, like putting the body on it, and then we'll go from there. We'll get it in place and then start playing with it. I am going to pull the other tank out, fit it in there, and we're going to take a quick look at that. But that's the problem I'm running into. Finally made it. Deserves some fireworks. Good thing it's the 4th of July. Tickle Pickle got her leg. Okay, I'm at the point where I have a fully functional suspension. So I'm moving on to battery mount, we're moving on to drive shaft, setting the body, that sort of thing. As I mentioned before, I'm going to wait on the gas tank. I want to make sure that I have the body in place and know exactly where I have room for that, because I'm going to have to put the gas tank in place, put the radiator in place, and then I'm going to have to build some air ducting for the radiator to ensure that it gets enough air at movement or traveling speeds. That being the case, just using a standard lead cell battery, lead acid. I was thinking about putting it in this area. It does fit. I was going to use some strapping to come off the bottom of this bar, go back and up, weld to that. Pretty simple. But the problem is that there's going to be a panel that goes here all the way across from body line to body line. And if I put the battery here, then I basically will have to make an opening, a doorway that I have to come through the cab, and that has some difficulties with it. because I'm going to have a large transmission hump here to clear the drive shaft. Just keep in mind, down here is the floor of the cab, about 1.5 inches above that, and the drive shaft's going to be here, you know, 15 inches up above that, or 12 inches above that. So pretty large transmission hump between the seats. So I'd have to try to straddle that and then turn around and gain access to that panel, all while I turn backwards and balancing on seats and lifting a heavy battery. Just doesn't sound like a lot of fun. So I think what I've decided to do, gonna run another piece of tubing down here all the way across to over there, and then we'll build off of that in a square. The battery will sit there. We'll probably have to do some bracing to make sure that the up and down movement doesn't fatigue the metal and eventually break it off and my battery goes skipping down the road. That would be bad. But it's fairly simple design. I think we're going to use some tubing. I've got a little bit of bed rail angle to make the base. I've got some expanded metal. So it's all free. It's not going to cost us anything. I've got an old battery tray here. I may use this as well instead of making the square parts. Maybe I'll make part of the square parts, weld that in there, and then use these angle braces as part of it. This is an old Jeepster one, so it works. It's already got all the pieces. The hold downs are in place. I do need to break this one free, the wing nut, clean it up, but it will work. And then I've got the exhaust kind of laid out here. Problem is I need some 2.5, and the piece I have is not long enough, and you probably can't see, it's kind of dark in there. I didn't bring a light over, but the light's right here. As you can see down there, I've got the end of the exhaust, and it needs a V-band clamp. I'm also in conflict with the motor mount, so I'm going to narrow the motor mounts up to accommodate the exhaust. My bad, I should have checked that beforehand. I thought it was all good. I was wrong. Oops. But at any rate, I got to get the V-band clamp ordered and get it delivered. Get a longer piece of 2.5-inch pipe. But we'll run the exhaust right down here. Just needs to stay below this level here, which is going to be where the floor sits. And then we'll probably just turn it and dump it out over in this area. Something like that. Really don't even need to dump it. I could just put a couple of straight pipes out the back and let it just run out the back of the vehicle. So that's where we're at. So let me get on that. We'll get to it. So I got the battery mount done. Well, done-ish. I got a couple of things left to do. All right, but it's finish welded into that part of it. I got to finish weld the tube to the C-notch, and then we need to give it some bracing this way so that it doesn't bounce and work these welds loose. So I need to put a bar from here to there and here to there that's going to encapsulate the drive shaft. I basically want to put a drive shaft hoop in there in case this U-joint breaks. I don't have it slinging up into the cab, because all this sheet metal is going to be here, and then the seats are going to be right here on either side of it. So not a lot of room. Well, I guess the seats will be a little bit further over. This isn't the frame is not the deciding factor on width. The body is actually out here. So seat back will be somewhere right up in this area. I probably could have mounted the battery up and into the cab area a little bit and then just formed the shell around it, but I decided not to do that just because of the additional work, and it really wasn't necessary. This is just going to make the inside nice and flat and clean. But at any rate, I need to come off of down here up over to the frame somewhere to give us a mount there, and then once this tube is in here, I'll come up and onto it, and that'll make that all solid. We're just going to have some simple bolt mechanisms to get this here mounted down. I don't think I'm going to be able to use these. The threads don't go down far enough, but battery hold down brackets are cheap, so we'll get some from the store and bolt that sucker down and be good to go. Drive shaft, that's what we're working on next. So I've got one from the pile. The big dimension, I don't have anything that matches up to it. It is too long. The U-joints are correct though. I'll have to press this one out and put a new one on it. And then this tube though, the typical drive shaft tubing I use will sleeve it. So I'm going to cut that end off. I'm going to cut this end off. We will make a new centerpiece, which I have the drive shaft tubing here already. We will plug weld. We'll drill holes, which I'll explain in greater detail when I get there. But I'll drill holes and plug weld it and end weld it. It'll be plenty strong. Won't have to worry about it coming off. Obviously we'll have to clean all this up. I could probably remove the other material. The problem with that is my material is bigger, so it makes it really hard to center those. But since it sleeves over the existing tubing really well, it'll be nice and centered. I'll be able to get them nice and straight and shouldn't have any vibration. I build them all the time for my off-road rigs, but I typically don't go over about 45, 50 in those. So while they don't ever vibrate, it's not like running down 70. But this will get me to the show, and then if I got to build one later, then it won't matter about the budget. So that's where we're at. All right, guys. So been a pretty good week. We got a fair bit done on the Tickle Pickle. But of course I never get done as much as I'd like to. I need a couple of things to really get the drive shaft stuff set up so that I can build it. So I need those U-joints, I need the U-joint straps, but I need that before I can put the body on. So today we're going to work on stripping out parts of this body, getting it ready to be dismantled and taken off. Got my helper Ronan in here working.
Hi.
So I'm going to supervise, but we'll get the fenders off. We've already got the hood, as you can see. I'm going to leave the grill for now. Don't need it for the other one, and I don't know what's going to go back on this body, or this frame I should say. I'll need another guy, somebody to help me pick the top off it, but we can get the seats removed, the steering wheel disconnected, all the body bolts out of it. That kind of stuff can all be done. We'll be able to take off the tailgate because I don't know that I'm going to use any more than just the shell of it. And then we've got to weld in some braces across the back because we're going to cut the whole rear section out. You can see it inside. that whole floor section's coming out, and then the area between the seats will have to come out for the drive shaft. So a fair bit of the interior is going to go away. But we're going to wrap it up for now, and we'll catch you on the next week as we continue putting the body onto the frame.